Welcome back to Sorry Not Sorry. I'm Pastor Kelly Krieg alongside my co-host here, Reverend Stephen Cholak, and we're excited to have another episode, right?
We are, yeah. Lots to talk about. We are jumping off into the land of Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas and some of these other foundational things.
So light reading, yeah.
Yeah.
So
don't drop off on us.
Yeah, exactly right. There goes the. But so yeah, like Pastor Cholak said, we're going to be looking at the 5 proofs for the existence of God that Thomas Aquinas comes up with. But before we get into that, to truly understand Aquinas and the world he was in and where he's coming from, we need to understand who formed him. Obviously the scriptures, but Aristotle. And so we needed to go back a few hundred, almost about 2,000 years, and look to Aristotle and who he was and the influence Aristotle had on medieval theologians. And so that's what we're going to do this episode, kind of get an introduction into Aristotle. Then we'll go from there. We'll look to those 5 proofs. So
yeah, it seems like we are in a way from a bird's eye view, and now getting down into the weeds, the difference between revealed revelation or natural revelation and specific revelation. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah. Well, and that's what we're doing. So to just kind of to lay the groundwork here, the influence that Aristotle has on Aquinas is, and many of the scholastics, this is a period of scholastic thinking in the 13th century. Scholasticism's coming in on it in its own, and Aquinas is not immune to that, and it really, the Latin West is rediscovering Aristotle at this point. If we remember our history, Aristotle in the 3rd century BC, around there, is preeminent thinker, philosopher, comes from Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and then,
which is fun because you get a little bit of Plato telling you, hey, you need the good, the beautiful,
exactly.
The true, right?
Exactly.
Which is like the foundation for Aristotelian logic. So.
Exactly, yeah. And then even with Aristotelian, you get the Neoplatonic thought that then comes into that. But so we look into Aristotle's world and who he is and what he's doing, and the fact that Aquinas in the Latin West is rediscovering this. Remember, with the sack and fall of Rome in 457 A.D., with the German Goths coming in and destroying it, we see Romulus Augustulus is the emperor on the throne at that time, is overthrown. In fact, just aside in Roman history, it's some argue that this actually isn't the fall of the Roman Empire, that there have been many attacks and overthrows of emperors, and in fact, Romulus Augustulus had a coup and actually got rid of Julius Nepo. And Nepo's down in what is Croatia at this time, and so there actually is, whenever the Odiasis, the German Gothic ruler, comes in, subjugates Romulus Augustulus. Nepo's still in Croatia. There's still a Roman emperor that claims and will claim for a while, but the Senate goes and takes the royal insignia, the imperial insignia, and sends it to Constantinople. Sends it over to Flavius. Yeah, to Flavius. And so now it shifts to the east, and as we know, the Byzantine Empire remains for a while, and will continue to be the bed of knowledge and a flashpoint of preservation of Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, these types of philosophers that were lost to the Romans and to the West, the Latin West, after the fall. And so now all of a sudden, that's gone. And this is one of the reasons, the medieval period or the Middle Ages, often called the Dark Ages, even though it's not dark. We see that it's dark in the sense of knowledge and no advancement in society, which is not the case. We see the advent of scientific thought, true scientific thought. We see even inroads into medicine, technologies, all start to happen. But we have this medieval period from the fall of Rome, 5th century, to the Renaissance, 15th century, which is this medieval period. And so this is what Aquinas is in. It's this time of rediscovery. So as people like Marco Polo and some of these Eastern explorers are going east and coming back with all sorts of things, we're getting more trade routes opened up, easier trade routes, land routes and sea routes. We're starting to, Islam is coming in.
Right. I had no idea you were going to go through all this history.
Sorry. I just wanted to try to get everybody, so Islam is coming in, and they have these. And so our scholastics are starting to rediscover.
Yeah, from the other side of the timeline, you have Aquinas coming in 1270s,
mm-hmm.
right? And Luther's going to come on the scene in the early 1500s. So
right.
We still have a couple of 100 years before
yeah.
before Luther's going to be on the scene, but he's paving the way for some of these other.
Without a doubt, and because Aquinas is so influential in the thinking of the Catholic Church, and some of the things that will be contentious in the Reformation,
right?
Aristotelian logic being a foundational. You Catholics may argue, well, it's not really Aristotelian logic, but you can't argue it without
right.
without Aquinas, without Aristotle. And so some of those things that will be a contentious flashpoint in the Reformation get their seed bed is here with Aquinas, and further back with Aristotle.
And the Catholics are going to call this Thomist theology,
mm-hmm.
right? And
yep.
the Thomist foundation that many of the counter-Reformation conversations are going to jump from.
The Catholic Reformation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Or the Roman Catholic Reformation. And so that's the world of Aquinas, and that's what he's coming up with. So they rediscover Aristotle, and they're really thinking into this and wanting to understand God's creation, to understand the human mind, the soul, the body, all of these things as they are working through. And so what is it that they discover about Aristotle? Well, it's his four causes for natural phenomena. So the four reasons something would appear in nature, would be created. And then you can look at these four causes, and these four causes are going to inspire and be not just inspire, but be the foundational knowledge, bedrock knowledge that Thomas is then going to build on top of. And so if you don't understand these four causes, because a lot of the language has morphed over, like language does, has morphed over time. So we say a cause doesn't necessarily mean what we mean today as in Thomas's time or Aristotle's time. And so this is why we're trying to unpack Aristotle a little bit,
yeah, sure.
To be able to get us on the right footing to dive into Aquinas and his five proofs.
So we keep using the word logic, and
mm-hmm.
That comes up a lot in classical education, just to be able to look. Oh, maybe this too. We said last time on our last episode the idea of an absolute truth.
Right.
And so in order to look at things and to have a conversation where there are absolutes that you jump from and say, oh, well, what is this table or what is this cup? There are things that we can argue and talk about rather than just raising our voice at each other.
Exactly, and so that's what the scholastics are trying to do. They're trying to nail down, much in the vein of I would say, kind of the councils of the early church, trying to nail down theological doctrine. The councils were trying to get these theological questions that these side groups were bringing to the front that were causing some to. So no, we need to talk about Theotokos and these types of things.
Yeah.
We need to talk about and get this down and understand what Scripture is saying and what the vast majority of the church was saying. The councils weren't so much. A group of men chose what the doctrine was. It was like, well, most of the people agreed, and we had to shut down some
But
of the
you're
heretics.
getting it handed down, and now you have some heretics
Exactly.
injecting some problems in here.
Yeah.
So now it's a time to rally the troops around.
Right, and so in that vein, with the advent of universities, scholars, that the monk scholar, the person that is dedicated to simply education and understanding, the top, which Aquinas is, he's able to look in there, and he's a brilliant. I mean, there are generational minds that come along, especially in the church, and you have these men, and Aquinas is one of those men. There are some things that we can pick apart of Aquinas that are not.
But we're not there yet.
But we're not there. We're not
Yeah.
there.
So let's back to Aristotle.
Yeah.
And he has 4 factors or
Mhm.
4 causes.
Yeah, 4 causes, and this it comes from his posterior analytics, and that's not something, if you're going to be a proctologist, you read. That's a different.
Yeah, I want to hear you say it in Latin. Never mind.
But yeah, so the Organ, which is a collection of Aristotle's works, which is just the organ, the Latin for organ, I guess. You're a Latin scholar.
Yeah, the basis with the.
Right, and so Andronicus of Rhodes compiles these. He's a peripatetic, which is the followers of.
Well, you're doing lots of name dropping.
Wikipedia is my friend.
Wikipedia is your friend. Okay, there we go.
No. But he's the leader of the followers of Aristotle. Now this is a few centuries later, but he compiles Aristotle's writings into this one tome, and it comes in one of his the 5 ways, the Quinque Via. I don't know if you're the Latin scholar, you can probably say it. Is that what it is? Quinque Via. Yeah. So the 5 ways. And so that's going to be. That's from Thomas's Summa Theologica. I'm getting my stuff mixed up here, but I know, right? It's all this.
Back to Wikipedia.
Back to Wikipedia. You failed me, Internet. You failed me. No, but the posterior analytics is what Aristotle's compiled into, and in there the 4 ways are.
Yeah, and this is coming about 40 BC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're before the life of Jesus. Obviously, we're in the early stages of the Roman Empire coming into.
Mm-hmm.
Julius Caesar is assassinated in 44.
Yep.
So he's just been killed.
So there's a lot of things happening,
Moving parts
that are going in the Roman Empire, and so we see this school of thought that has followed Aristotle and preserved his writings and teachings, and still passes them on to their acolytes. Comes out with and highlights these 4 causes, and so there's the material cause, or the material factor, the efficient factor, what's the other one?
Formal?
The formal factor and the final factor.
Right.
These are the 4 factors or 4 causes of natural phenomena.
Yeah.
And to understand that, we'll kind of unpack each one of those a little bit. So the material factor.
This is the favorite one of just science,
Mhm.
what we would call science now.
Right.
Right. So, what is this table made of?
Yeah. Well, what does something consist of? So the matter it's the elemental being of a thing, and it's the matter is the possibility of form.
Mm-hmm.
So the matter of a child is the possibility of an adult, and it makes the possibility and the actuality and the possibility come from one another. And then you'll see that the chicken and the egg is the classic argument in some of this. But the material factor is, so if we take a table, what is the material factor of this object that we see here? And
It's wood.
Wood, right? And screws for maybe some glue or whatever it might be to hold it together. So that's
the carpenter's worth his weight. There's nothing but wood here.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. And that's what we have with the material factor, and then you go into the efficient factor, and this is the source of when you look at something, you start to be able to describe kind of what it is. So we look at this, not knowing table in our minds, we look at this and we say, well, it's a flat-topped piece with 4 legs supporting it on the ground. And so this is the efficient factor. And so it's the cause kind of what it becomes. What we use in modern day language is a cause. So this becomes a flat-topped piece with 4 legs for some purpose. We yet to know what that purpose is, though.
Well, that's going to be the final factor.
That'll be the final factor, right?
Yeah.
And so
For great podcasting.
the final. There you go. Plug.
Sorry, I jumped your train there.
No, that's fine. But so you have the material, the efficient factor, and then you have the formal factor. And from the formal factor, we start to see how did this flat-topped thing with 4 legs come into being? So this becomes the woodworker, the electricity used to power his power tools, and all sorts of other things that might go into that polyvinyl acetate, which is wood glue.
Great.
That was Wikipedia. I'm not that smart. I am not that
in West Texas.
No, so the wood glue, the metal and the screws, all of things that the human factor that goes into making it. So how is all of that? How did this thing become what it is?
Uh-huh.
And that's the formal factor, and the formal factor leads to the final factor, the final cause, which is tableness.
Tableness.
Yeah. Tableness. And so
a place to work at.
what is this thing that all of these other factors are put together to be? And so what is this supposed to be? And all things in nature, according to Aristotle, we can deduce what they are through using these types of analysis and approach to them. And so the tableness, this is something used for study, to hold, have a dinner or whatever type of table it might be. So that's the final
There can be
factor.
multiple final factors.
Exactly. And ultimately, too, this is where we're going to get into some of the, when we get into Aquinas, the idea of the substance and accidents, which is very important in transubstantiation,
Eucharistic theology.
And the substance of the thing is what it is that makes it what it is. This is a table. That's the substance of this table. The accident of the table is brownness or the high shine or something. Because I could paint this thing white, and it would still be a table. And so that's the difference between the substance and the accidents.
In other words, the difference of, or the ability to change the material factor,
right,
without changing the appearance.
Exactly, and that's going to be the argument with the Eucharistic theology of the Roman Catholic Church, is that the substance has changed. The accidents are still there. You still see wine, what looks to appear wine. You still see what looks to appear bread.
Even though it's not.
Even though it's not. And then the Lutherans come and say, well, no, we're not beholden to Aristotelian logic. We're not beholden to Aquinas and the thought. And this theology was already pre-Aquinas, but he really puts his stamp on it.
Right.
And we're saying, no, we know it's the body and blood of Christ because Scripture says it is.
Right.
I don't know
But we're
how.
not going to attach some philosophical
Because when you
mind track.
exactly, and when you do that, then you painted yourself into the corner that the doctrines of men don't always hold up. There are times that we believe this wholeheartedly, and then something comes up, and oh wait, we have to rethink everything. Newtonian physics, Einstein, comes in, and it's everybody's world's turned upside down.
Exactly.
And so we, as a church, we don't put all our faith or anything in the ideas of man, even though they may be helpful and good. We don't go into it. And so that was one of the areas of disagreement during the Reformation. It comes
Oh yeah,
out.
definitely. Amongst other
Yeah.
Eucharistic.
Exactly, amongst the other
issues.
things as well. But that is, so that's kind of what we look to whenever we understand Aristotle and the world and the contribution to philosophy that Aristotle is going to give to this topic that we're discussing. Is this, what makes a thing a thing? What are the causes of a material object and its being and natural phenomena? And so that will lead us into next week whenever we talk about these 5 ways.
The
right?
5 ways.
Yeah, the 5 ways. And so, and just we'll just highlight those if you want to do some. Those of you out there, if you want to do some reading on your own, looking at just to know a little bit about it, the 5 ways is there's an argument for motion, there's an argument from efficient cause, there's an argument from necessary being, the argument from gradation, and the argument from design, or also known as the teleological argument. And so those will be the arguments we'll be looking at as we go forward in these next coming weeks and episodes to unpack each one of these, to understand what is the merit of these arguments, and is there any holes that might be in these arguments.
Yeah. And of course, Thomas is sort of bringing together these things in order to, as ways to look backwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to carry these things through in the same way that we can use these 4 factors that we just went through to support our conversations about the existence of God.
Exactly, and that's what he's doing, and he's putting down in ink and paper to preserve, to hold, pass on to the generations to come the best arguments he can make for the existence of God, because we are, even in the 12th century, many people think, well, Europe was this Christian continent and everybody was all in line. And it's like, no, there's still, in Thomas's day, there is still parts of Europe that are not Christian. I know this because I used to live in Lithuania. The Lithuanians didn't become Christian until the 14th century. So there's pagan holdouts, and they're coming across with a lot of people. The
Soviets didn't help that either.
No, the Soviets didn't help either. But they came a little after the Aquinas did. But we see the...
But your Lithuanian experience.
Yeah, my Lithuanian experience. And that's kind of the thing too, that there's pagans, nations that are thriving in Europe at this time. Islam is in its ascendancy and is threatening throughout obviously all in North Africa, up into Iberian Peninsula, and to the west, or coming from the east Eventually we'll see in Luther's day, coming up to Vienna, and
Right.
and really,
which really forces the empire and the political leaders to try to figure out how to get all of the either theological unrest or political unrest taken care of in their territories,
right,
before they need to unite against
a this
common enemy.
heathen, pagan, menace that's coming. And so that's what Thomas is doing in his day, arguing we can know God. We can know God from nature, we can know God from reason, and these types of things. The truth is, we can know God from his revealed revelation to us through Scripture, but all creation points to God. And this is what Thomas is saying. We can use this.
Right. We were just, in one of the classes, I was discussing something with some students on Wittenberg Academy, that the intricacies of the human eye, for instance, how if one part doesn't work right, then the other parts that may be in the right place and the right time don't work either. So if your iris and everything isn't developed at the right evolutionary moment,
Yeah.
as they would say, but your retina and everything in the back is developed to that, you still can't see.
Right. The cones and rods and everything else don't matter.
Right.
And this is what
The irreducible complexity of the things makes evolution.
and that is Aquinas' fifth argument from design, which we'll get to in, I guess, 5 weeks.
Right. So hold my horses.
Yes, so slow your roll there a little bit, Cholak.
Okay.
But I guess we'll wrap up for this episode for this week on the 4 factors. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us, comment down below, and we'll be more than happy. Pastor Cholak, more than happy to answer any question you have.
And I'll just
No, we'll answer to the best of our ability, which means we'll cut and paste a Wikipedia link and no, but we feel free to
I'm going to let him dig his own holes.
but feel free to comment, and please like and share. Right, you gotta hit the like button, hit the share button.
Make that ding,
Yeah.
bell ding.
Ding, whatever it is, I'll add that later. But do that because that helps us to get this out more. The more you like and share these videos, the more. It's not just for our ego; it's for that's the algorithm of the way the internet works. That the more it's shared, the more it will start to come up in people's feeds. So help us out there, and like I say, leave a comment. But until next week, I'm Pastor Krieg.
I'm Pastor Cholak.
Have a blessed day.
Bye.